thing got closer and closer, it's not making any sound at all. But it has what looks like a helicopter spotlight shining right in my eyes. But at the same time, it's not casting any light on the ground, which was super weird.
All right, everybody, this is the big one. Episode 20! It's hard to believe that it's nearly been a year of Odd Virginia. There have been a few occasions on this journey that I didn't think we'd make it this far, but we have. Odd Virginia is too legit to quit. I want to thank everyone for their support, for giving this podcast an hour of your time. Episode 20 is probably a bigger deal to me than it is to you. I heard once that only 1% of podcasts make it past their 20th episode. Well, we're shooting for the stars, baby. Who would have thought a podcast exclusively about the paranormal in Virginia could stand a chance? The Odd Virginians, that's who. And apparently 25% of our listener base is listening from Brazil. Now, I don't speak Portuguese, but to our Brazilian listeners, obrigado por ouvir. Now let's get into today's interview. I was lucky to meet our next guest while visiting a friend in Virginia Beach, and this guest currently lives in a haunted apartment and has also had multiple sightings of unusual lights and craft in the sky. We'll hear all about it soon, but before we do, I want to extend an offer to anyone who's had their own experience within the confines of Virginia. If you have paranormal experiences, or have seen any strange, unusual lights in the sky, know of any strange folklore from Virginia's history, reach out to me via email. You can email me at oddvirginia@protonmail.com. That's oddvirginia@protonmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. Because here at Odd Virginia,
we're ready to believe you.
Today on the show, my guest is Erin, and she and I met probably last summer, about a year ago, right?
About a year ago.
I think so, yeah. Friends of a friend of mine who I was down in your area visiting. Actually, I believe you live in the flat below him, correct?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
You seemed so friendly, just coming up and talking to me about your paranormal experiences right when you heard that I had any sort of interest in that. And I very much appreciated the openness about it and all that. And honestly, I don't remember all of what was said, aside from some stuff about strange lights in the sky. So we're definitely going to be getting into that. But more recently, Dexter told me that you suspect the place you guys are living in is haunted. If I've got that right?
Yeah.
Think so.
Yeah. The whole area, but specifically his apartment upstairs, it has subsided a lot since one of our neighbors intervened. And it really seemed to come to an abrupt end after that. But
intervened in what sort of way?
Oh, well, we're not really completely sure. We tried to listen in a little bit with our ear to the door, but she went upstairs after we had told her several times about this, but she was really drunk, but she was always really drunk. But she was like very confident that she knew how to talk to this ghost.
She's like, I do drunk exorcisms all the time. Don't worry about it.
No, that was her exact words. Like, that was her specialty.
Okay.
So she went up into Dexter's apartment and had just a conversation with this entity that had been probably for I don't know, 8 months, a year, stomping around, doing all kinds of stuff upstairs. You know another Aaron associated with Dexter, right?
Yeah.
Okay. He was staying with Dexter for a little bit, and this wasn't the first occasion, but this was the most significant. They went out. I was out on my porch. I said bye to them. They said they were going out to a bar, a restaurant, something. They were going out for the evening, and I saw them leave. I waved bye and eventually came back inside my apartment, and I could just hear constant, it sounded like children running around upstairs. And it's only a 2-floor building, so there's really not a whole lot of other ways that ceiling noise in my apartment can be made.
Right. When Aaron and Dexter are up there, can you hear them walking around?
Aaron, I can hear.
He stomps.
He's a stomper.
Yeah.
Dexter, is very light-footed. He's very light on his feet, but I can still hear him. I don't really notice it because I know he's up there. It's not something that I'm really concentrating my attention on because I know Dexter's upstairs. When it first started happening, it was only when Dexter was out of town. He would let me know that he was leaving to go back to his hometown, or he was going to be gone for the weekend. And I'd be like, okay, bye. You know, like, see you when you get back. I'll keep an eye on the place. After he would be gone for some amount of time and I was home, I could hear faucets turning on. I could hear walking around, and it wasn't just thumping noises. It was very obvious, almost like I could see the path that this sound was traveling. The thumping, the stomping.
It was like going across the room.
Yeah, I could, and it was in the usual walking path of, okay, going in from the kitchen to the dining room to the living room to the bathroom. I could follow the noise with my hearing and my imagination of where it was going. And it was heavy footsteps, but also like a child would step without big strides, almost like a kid running around. And a couple times I would text Dexter while he was out of town, or I would tell him when he'd get back into town that this was going on. And I at first thought that there was somebody, this was long before Aaron was here. I would ask him when he'd get back into town, like, did you have somebody staying at your apartment while you were gone? And he'd say, no, I didn't. Why would you even ask that? And I didn't really want to tell him at first because I personally, I don't want to say I don't believe in ghosts. I don't believe in afterlife spirits or hauntings. I've just never personally seen or witnessed any myself, so I don't have any personal verification of it.
That makes me think really quick. Sorry to cut you off there. But does the apartment upstairs above you, Dexter's apartment, have an attic attached to it?
It does.
It does. Okay. So 2 thoughts here.
Yes.
One is that it could be a ghost, and I'm not saying it isn't, who's coming down to feed the goldfish while he's gone.
Yeah.
Or 2, have you ever seen video camera footage that a person put up in their kitchen and found out that there was actually somebody stowed away in their attic only coming down at night? Yeah.
Yeah. That's was another my first instinct was that somebody was in his apartment while he was gone. And then when he said there wasn't, I asked him if there was attic access in his ceiling. I'd never been up in his apartment until very recently, but he said, yeah, there was. He was pretty freaked out. At first, I don't think he really believed me. But then, yes, I was like, somebody is in your apartment. It is absolutely a positive thing. And then he started telling me about experiences that he was having while he was home that kind of aligned with the paranormal. It would be nice if he could give you his insights and experiences from his perspective on this part. Do you want me to go get him? I think he's up there.
Yeah, we could do that. I was thinking of calling him, but it'd be better if he could just get on screen right now.
He should be at work, but I saw him come home when I was leaving, and then I heard something. He might have been leaving for work. Hold on, let me check.
Awesome.
Hello, Virginians. I know you're listening to this on the road, and that the road may be long and your eyes may be weary. Wake up! Because you have a long way to go, and I have an important announcement. Odd Virginia is now on Instagram, operated by our social media manager, Bill Delgallo. Not only does he post you updates on when the shows will be released, but you'll also see things on the Instagram channel that you will not see on the show. So head over to odd.virginia on Instagram. That is odd.virginia on Instagram. I implore you, for the sake of our state, follow Odd Virginia on Instagram. Now, back to your scheduled interview.
All right, we were able to get Dexter on the line to share his side of the haunting in the apartment. I didn't know you had experienced anything, Dex. I really didn't.
Yeah, it's been recent lately. Honestly, it's been weird because I've lived here for 5 years, and the first 3 years I haven't noticed anything, and then the last 2 years, I don't know, I started getting signs and everything, and just like hearing weird noises, knocks, footsteps, sounds. I mean, you name it.
Were the knocks in the wall and the footsteps on your floor, or were they above you?
On my floor.
On your floor. Okay.
My floor. Yeah.
So my supposition after Erin told me about this was that maybe there's an attic, and she said, yes, there is. So I was like, oh, dude, something's coming down from there when Dex isn't home. But no, it's right there with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Huh.
It actually, it comes out when I'm sleeping too.
Oh, that's fun.
That's the other strange part about it. Yeah, like actually I had an experience the other day. I was sleeping, and all of a sudden I just closed my eyes and I heard the door move, and I woke up and I looked, and the door was open, like literally wide open, and I had it closed.
Huh.
So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I thought it had subsided since Lisa came in and did her drunk magic.
Nope. It's
I haven't heard
still,
it.
It's still here.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, and I forgot to mention, you guys are in Virginia Beach. We never said that yet.
Yes.
No, yeah.
We're in
yeah.
Virginia Beach.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's an area that goes way, way back. Lots and lots of things have happened there. Many people have died, but not everybody thinks that the poltergeist cases are necessarily human entities or ghosts. So that brings me to think, when the knocks occur, do they happen in wraps of 3?
Oh no, don't bring up that number.
Yes and no. And honestly, sometimes they're not even knocks. They're like kind of almost like scrapes on the door, really. Depending on where it is, the knocks that I've heard have always been coming from outside, and it literally sounds like someone taking their knuckle and just like knocking on the window or door or whatever. But yeah, it's very unusual, and it's just usually it's just one loud knock, and then. But it's so loud enough. It almost sounds like someone just threw a pebble right at the window.
Wow.
Like that's how loud it is. And with the footsteps and everything, I've only heard the footsteps one time, and it was only one time when I actually just came back from getting groceries, and I opened the door, and it was funny because my neighbor was asleep. She was asleep, and I was walking up the stairs, and this is probably the most paranormal experience I've ever had. I got halfway up the stairs, and then the next thing I know, I hear a whine, which sounded like a child's whine. And then it sounded like little footsteps just scurrying off into my closet, my storage closet up here in the apartment. And then I could hear it so well, it stopped me. Like I literally just stopped and froze. And I was like, you got to be kidding me, because she kept telling me about the footsteps she kept hearing. And then I finally get to hear them. And as soon as I just sit there and froze for a moment listening to see if I was hearing any other sounds. And then I didn't hear anything. And I was like, okay, I gotta get a second opinion on this. So I went back down the stairs, knocked on her door, and asked her if she heard anything, but she didn't, unfortunately, because she was asleep. But after that, as soon as after that experience I had with it, I believed everything that was going on with my apartment. And it, like I said, it's still kind of going on to this day, but it's just, I haven't heard much activity until.
I haven't either.
I haven't. Yeah. And then the only other experience I could say is like when I'm sleeping, there does feel like something touches me while I'm asleep, or it just like grabs my covers and just like slightly pulls on my bed covers. And yeah, that's been the most recent thing lately, or something sitting on my bed.
Sitting on your bed, that's the freaky thing. That's the one that really made it into an emergency.
Yeah,
I would say
that
so.
was creepy.
That would freak me the heck out.
Yeah.
The what I was getting to tell you before I went and got Dexter to give you his perspective on it, when it really became a thing, a real thing for me, because before it was just like Dexter's out of town and I'm hearing noises in his apartment and I'm telling him after the fact, like it sounded like somebody was up in your apartment while you were gone for the weekend. But anyway, this one night, Dexter and Aaron were going out to dinner or going out for the night. I saw them leave. I was on my front porch, said bye to both of them. They got in the car and drove away. And then I came back inside, and for the next 2 hours, hour and a half, I heard nothing but like there was somebody just walking around upstairs. And I had watched both of them leave. And I could see that not only Aaron's car, but also Dexter's car were both still in the parking lot. So this whole time I'm sitting there trying to figure out what is this noise that I'm hearing. And you can't really see how our apartment's configured, but it's kind of like a circle. There's like a living room, a dining room, a kitchen, and then the hallway to the front door, all in kind of a loop.
Okay.
It's a walk-through kitchen.
You've seen my apartment. I mean, it's basically the same downstairs. So it's
minus the stairs.
Minus the stairs. That's the only difference.
So I'm hearing all of this, and it almost sounded like a kid bouncing a ball or playing. It was very strange. And then at one point, I was hearing these noises, and it was kind of the pinnacle of it. It was just gotten to be so loud and so obvious that there was someone upstairs. And it also sounded like there was TV on or music or something. I couldn't place my finger on it. But then I heard Aaron and Dexter's voices at what sounded like it was coming from the front porch. I kind of thought for a second it was coming from upstairs. They had just been up there the whole time. But then I heard them talking and kind of conversating, and it was coming from the stairwell area, which is an area, the stairs are an area where noise carries most into my apartment. And then I heard the footsteps go towards the top of the stairs. From where I was sitting, it walked right above my head, kind of through the living room area and towards the stairs. And then I heard Dexter's key go into the key slot in the doorknob. And that's a very distinct sound. It's not very loud, but it's very distinct. The sound of the key going in, the doorknob turning, and the door opening. And then this sound from upstairs, it was all of a sudden it ran. It started into the bathroom area. Yeah. And then Dexter and Aaron opened the door and started going up the stairs. And I immediately went back out onto the porch and knocked on Dexter's door, like, come back out here really quick, because this just happened. And told him that the sound just ran into his bathroom area as soon as they opened the door. Like, it got off the couch and decided, like, oh shit, somebody's coming, and then ran. And isn't that the same kind of area where the little access to the attic is too? Yeah,
kind of. There's a vent, an attic vent that goes to the attic in the bathroom. I just now realized this. So there's a door to the attic in the storage closet, and then there's an attic vent that goes to the attic in the bathroom. So my guess is if it does come out, it comes out of those two places, either the bathroom or the closet.
Mm-hmm. I had something I wanted to mention about that. First of all, I thought it was funny that you heard it sound like a child whining and then ran away from you into the closet. And when you're gone, it sounds like there's a child playing upstairs. Mm-hmm. It sounds to me like there's a child who's very afraid of you.
Yes.
But also seems kind of like it wants to be your friend, almost like it trusts you or something, because it sits on the edge of your bed when you're sleeping. It kind of seems to play a little bit while you're there. I don't know. I don't know these things.
Yeah. I mean, there's more I could tell you about it, Alex. I have had two experiences where I've seen, I guess you could say, eyes.
What sort of eyes?
Like hip high. they're just white, but it's in pitch black dark.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like they're just little tiny white glows, but they're wide enough to look like eyes. And I've had 2 experiences with that, one in the bathroom and then one in my own bedroom.
And they're not attached to anything. It's just little translucent orbs or something like that.
Yeah, just 2 little white orbs, but they're so in the dark that you can't even tell if there's a shadow around them or anything. They just, and it's kind of weird because they'll slightly move and look at you and then they just fade away.
But they keep their distance from each other like eyes would.
Yeah, it's like the same far apart as eyes.
That is very, very chilling.
Like I said, they're in the height. If you were to measure out the height of where these eyes are, they look like it's the same size of a child. So it's
or possibly a gnome. I'm just kidding.
It's pretty wild, man. But then, like I said, it's like as soon as like in both experiences, when I looked at them, they looked at me and then all of a sudden they just fade away, just fade right into the darkness. And both times have been in the dark too. It's like when the bathroom was, all the lights were off and both instances were also when I was leaving for work. So it was almost like it was waiting for me to leave work and it was watching me trying to leave. And
like it knows your schedule.
Yeah, and it literally does. Actually, I kind of had an experience the night before last because I had the night off from work and
I thought it was over.
Yeah. Well, I've got to the point where I'm living with it now, so it's like a roommate.
Embraced it.
Yeah, literally a roommate. But I feel cold chills throughout the apartment. And there's been times where I've been wanting you to come down and just experience this because I have an experiment that I want to do with you, in a paranormal experiment.
Okay.
Just to set out a toy on my coffee table and see if anything happens.
Or like multiple toys, like a little, like a doll and a train or something. Because
it will move stuff too. That's another weird thing too. I've had headphones move and stuff knocked over.
Well, no, you told me about the headphones. It was like an earbud in a place that really shouldn't have been, especially since it was right in front of your door or something.
Yeah, I took an earbud. I just came back from the gym and I took my earbuds out and I threw them on the bed. And then I went to go take a shower and then I came back out and I was going to start charging them and I couldn't find them. I'm walking around and then the next thing I know, I walk into my room. Right there they are laying in the middle of the floor. Wow. And I'm like, I didn't put those there. I didn't put those in the middle. And they look like they were placed right there at the doorway for me to find them, like right in the middle of the doorway together for me to find them.
Well, here's the one problem that I'm seeing with this experiment, Dexter, and that is that it seems like this thing wants to observe you, but not be observed by you from some of these things that you've been telling me. However, I think I also have the solution, which is one toy no child can resist. I've got 80s He-Man action figures.
Perfect.
So
Perfect.
I think we have the solution there. Yes. We'll try it.
80s He-Man, Stretch Armstrong, also a good one.
Yeah, Stretch Armstrong is a very good one.
If
you see that thing start moving, you grab the other hand and you just let it pull.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yes, I agree.
I have several thoughts on this. First of all, we can't give Lisa too much credit.
No, but I mean, I don't know. She was up there a long time and I don't know exactly what she did or anything, but the only thing I know is that she said that she talked to it, but
I heard her talking to it.
She told me it's like, if any time I wanted to leave, just tell it go and it would go away.
That oftentimes seems to help.
That's what she said. She said that she basically explained to it that it wasn't its home, that it shouldn't be there, that it needed to move on to wherever it was supposed to be, that whatever reason it was still there wasn't supposed to be there anymore. The vibe she got from this entity, that she couldn't see it, but it was a very sassy, young adult female, like a teenager.
Yeah.
Do you have to leave? Do you have to go to work?
Yes.
Okay.
I have to get ready. So,
okay.
Alex, we definitely, when you get the chance to come down.
Oh, I'll be there.
we're going to have to investigate this for
And
sure.
thank you for making this impromptu cameo on the podcast. Good to see you again.
Of course.
Thank you, Dexter.
Can't wait to see you. But yeah, she's got a really good story to tell you. So
I do.
Safe driving, man.
We might have to break it into 2 podcasts at this point. We got into this one, and now I think we're gonna have to like save the other things for another time. Thanks, Dexter. Drive safe tonight. Be careful out there.
We got through a lot there. I was just going to ask if you knew how old the building is.
Well, I do. I've lived here twice in this apartment complex. It was built in the 80s, so it's 30 some years old. What my kind of weird suspicion is what the podcast, I would like to start a podcast about this, because I've always felt this guilt for not knowing the answer to the question of what happened to this girl. It was built in the 80s, probably about the same time I was born. I lived here in 2009 for a year in a different building, a different apartment, but it was basically the same exact apartment, just a different building, a street over. And when I was living there, this is about the time, the original reason why I wanted to tell you the story, my story about things I've seen. It was happening right about this time. So 2008, 2009. I was living here, though, and my boyfriend at the time started doing research, and I can't remember why, but he kept telling me that this area here, the area is called Little Neck. There's a neighborhood called Middle Plantation, and I'm sure, as you know, the Virginia Beach area and lots of Virginia and lots of the U.S. was plantations. And before that, there were large populations of indigenous people living here before the plantations were even established. And we don't really know how far back or how deep or intricate that history is of the native people who lived in these lands. And we don't actually know what went on.
There is some anthropological record, but it's still very vague.
Very vague. And it can be interpreted many different ways. And also there's a lot of missing information. So what he found in his research was that this was a burial ground and quarters for where slaves were held for these plantations. It has like a weird vibe to it. And I think the reason he did the research was because there's just this uncomfortable vibe here that it just, you don't feel welcome. It's such a welcoming neighborhood. It's very safe, very quiet, but at the same time, it feels like, get out of here. But he researched that it was in the records that it was a burial ground for somebody, some group, and that it was also part of a plantation in the historical records.
Those sorts of places are always ripe for supernatural experiences to present themselves.
Right, exactly. Any kind of experience. So I lived here that a long time ago, moved away and moved back. Before that, though, here's the weird part that I was getting at. I want to say 2003. I'm going to look it up really quick. I was hanging out with my best friend, and her name's Katie. And we did this all the time. We would make a fire pit, a big fire in my parents' backyard. We just sit, hang out, drink, smoke cigarettes, sit by the fire, laugh, listen to music all night. And my parents' house is maybe a quarter mile away from here. On that night, which was August 14th, 2005, we were hanging out in my parents' backyard, doing the thing that I was just explaining to you, just hanging out, drinking, sitting by the fire, listening to music. And we ran out of cigarettes. I want to say it's like 3 o'clock in the morning. And so we got on our bikes and rode to the 7-Eleven, the little area 7-Eleven down the street, which is like a mile away. And it was nothing unusual. We rode our bikes there. We got the cigarettes. We got some kind of drink. And then we rode to the little duck ponds fishing spot. And we sat there and we smoked a couple cigarettes and drank our Arizona iced tea or whatever we were drinking. And completely oblivious to anything going on. Got back on our bikes, rode back to my parents' house. And then the sun was about to come up. It was early. And Katie wanted to go home. She didn't want to spend the night. So I told her I would ride with her back to her parents' house.
By late early, you mean like super duper morning?
Yeah, like it was like 4:30 in the morning. Okay. Sun was about to come up. And it's like a 10-minute bike ride to her house. So I wasn't ready to go to sleep. I didn't really want her to leave. So I rode back with her to her parents' house, dropped her off, then left to ride back to my parents' house. And as I was riding back in the morning, there was like, the sun was rising. There was this fog, kind of low fog over everything. It was just it was normal at the time. But there was this one person that was really out of place when I got back to my parents' neighborhood, which is a one-way in, one-way out neighborhood. So you really have to either belong there, be there, live there, or be leaving there.
They weren't in a vehicle?
No. This person was walking kind of down the street in the grass of somebody's house. And when I came around the corner on my bike, he dipped into this kind of like their front yard bushes and kind of cut the corner and went behind the bushes.
Oh, yeah, that's not suspicious at all.
No, not at all. But he was already a well-known kind of suspicious person in the neighborhood. And I kind of stopped my bike and waited for him to come back around the bush and kind of like threw my hands up like, what are you doing here? Because I knew he didn't live in the neighborhood. It's a very small neighborhood and everybody knows everybody. Anyway, he just kind of like turned his head away and kept walking. And I kept riding home, which was only about a block away. When I got home, I went to bed and the sun was up and I was exhausted. And I woke up probably around noon. And when I got up, my mom said, Erin, did you hear about this girl that was killed last night right down the street? I was like, what? No. Like, what happened? And she said this girl was riding her bike. She was at 7-Eleven. That was a news article. Said this girl was at 7-Eleven. She rode her bike from this place to 7-Eleven. Same thing as we did. Rode home. And when she was maybe 200 feet from her home, somebody beat her to death in the traffic circle right down the street from where Dexter and I's apartment is.
Oh my gosh.
And they still have not figured out who did it. Her name is Mary Shelley Carson. And this was in 2005. And the whole time, I mean, I've called the detectives. I have let them know that I think I know who did it, that there was a very suspicious person. They said, we already talked to that person. They were like number one on our suspect list. But their grandma gave him an alibi, said he was home all night. And I was like, but he wasn't. He was in like a half mile away at 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning. Like, how could he be home all night? How could you verify that? And, I was like, also, we were at 7-Eleven about the same time she was, but we were probably just didn't notice or drunk. And so why didn't somebody call to interview us to see if we had any information about the person that was at the same place at the same time as us that died? I mean, we were like, well, if it was just some random person that killed her, then it could have been us. We were just sitting like ducks at the duck pond, not having any clue as to what was behind us or any danger or anything. It's bothered me.
You could have been a suspected person in that case as well.
I should have been. Both my friend and I should have been questioned by the police.
Yeah.
Technically. So anyway, bad investigation. Virginia Beach loves to cover stuff up, but this girl's murder has been unsolved for 20 plus years. And that is, as the crow flies, maybe 2 blocks away from our apartment. And it's haunted me. So sometimes I think that this entity that's up in Dexter's apartment, it could be this girl, because she used to hang out with people in this apartment complex all the time. Her house, her family's home is a block away. I mean, I don't know. That was a possibility in my head, that she's haunting Dexter, kind of stomping around on my ceiling, trying to get my attention to follow through with this. But I don't know how ghosts work. I don't know how.
Yeah. There's not really a way to verify that unless you're the kind of person who does, some of that occultic sort of thing or ghost investigation stuff, which I don't know much really about it. I've seen, ghost investigation TV shows, but I tend to stay very clear of seance and occultic magic and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Spiritualism.
I mean, I think that's healthy. There's a lot of hype around it today. It seems like it's a lot of fake hype and just for views and likes and stuff. But I personally don't have a connection with that spirit realm, as far as I know, except for when I was probably about 9 years old. I accurately predicted my grandmother's heart attack about 3 hours before it happened for no reason. So, I mean, I kind of feel like I have premonitions, but I've never seen or dealt with ghosts or apparitions like that.
Yeah, well, premonitions and dealing with persons and mort are two totally different sort of things. I mean, they're both fall under the category of ESP if you're able to communicate with them, but most people I don't think can do that, that mediumship sort of thing.
Yeah, and even the people who claim that they can, I'm not sure if they're really doing it either. I think there are some people.
Some people, for certain.
Yeah. I think some people do have the gift of connection to that other side of things. The things that I've witnessed and experienced as well, I can't necessarily say that I know what they are. I don't know if there's a difference between the spirit world and this UFO entity. Like, how are we to say that they're separate? Or
I fall along those same lines after listening to Jacques Vallée's theory of everything, or theory of everything else, I think is what he calls it. And the man is incredible genius. I think he's got multiple PhDs, just a huge researcher, physicist, I think. Yeah, he is a physicist. Amazing mind. And I don't think we're going to have him around for too much longer, unfortunately, but he's getting up there in years. And I don't want to get off into a tangent in that, but I think anyone who is listening who wants to try to better understand the possibilities surrounding all of these strange otherworldly phenomenon, whether it be spiritual or extraterrestrial or interdimensional, however you might want to spin it, they all could be very much the same or connected things.
I don't think that it's off topic at all. Is his name spelled JACQUESVALLE with a little swoosh over it?
Yeah, I think sometimes it's also spelled with two E's at the end.
And I just looked him up. I just put JOCK, which I know is not the right spelling.
Well, if that came up, it shows you how prominent he is.
Yeah, it's a Wikipedia page. It says, just from the intro, it says, Jacques Vallée, born September 24th, 1939, is an internet pioneer, computer scientist, venture capitalist, author, ufologist, and astronomer, currently residing in San Francisco, California, and Paris, France. I mean, that's quite a reputation for a whole lot of really important things.
If you're a media buff at all, I think his crowning achievement was being in Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
He was in the movie?
He was either in the movie or they based a character on him and used him as a advisor.
Right. That's one of the most significant movies from my childhood. I just always thought that was so cool because my family grew up in an area where that Devil's Tower exists in reality. You know, the Devil's Tower, it looks like a big tree stump where the UFOs landed in Close Encounters.
I vaguely remember it. It's been over a decade since I've seen the movie.
Made like a mashed potato sculpture.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Of that Devil's Tower. Anyway, so I always thought that was cool. But no, that's a significant character in all of everything. I mean, internet pioneer, really?
Yeah. Yeah. He's put himself into a lot of things over the years. Man has never stopped working or thinking.
I wish I could be that productive. Even if I started now, I don't think I could accomplish that much in my lifetime. I feel like certain people are put on this earth in these lives to just deliver some kind of gift to humanity.
I think so as well. And I do believe that certain people are just predisposed to never stop working and never giving up.
Yeah. I also think there are certain people that are predisposed to seeing and experiencing what like Dexter's experiencing. And also it seems like there are people who are predestined to have close encounters of the extraterrestrial or terrestrial or whatever UFO kind. You would hear stories, of people saying, oh, this happened to me and I saw the lights and they came down, they abducted me, or, I just saw this thing, UFO pictures. And I was always like, that sounds awesome, but completely unrealistic that would actually happen.
It's certainly a 1 in a million thing, if it is possible at all.
I don't think it's that big of a stretch. I think it's, especially recently, becoming less than 1 in a million for sure. I mean, really, when you think about it, a lot of people see things that they just discount as, or hear things or experience things, they just discount as their mind playing tricks on them, or their eyes, or especially around here, we have so many aircraft and sounds in the sky and lights in the sky and military bases. So people are just always assuming it's something military related, especially if it's at a distance. That a lot of things that happen, I think, are just kind of brushed over just by our own minds trying to not freak out. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. I don't think it's even 1 in a million. Have you?
Yeah, you may be right.
I think it's 1 in 1,000, maybe. But people don't watch anymore. People don't look. People don't listen.
Oh, there are still people out there watching, for certain.
Oh, definitely.
But I've never had an experience like that personally, but you've told me that you've had a few sightings of strange things in the sky, right?
I have. And that's why I initially wanted to talk to you, because I think everybody who has experiences like this always knows what they saw. Everybody knows what they saw, what they experienced. You can try and tell your story to others and they can believe it or not. And that's, I guess, the problem. But when you take a culmination of all the people who've seen things and you kind of add it all together, you really have to start questioning whether it's us or them, or whether your personal belief structure is set up in a way that allows you to receive information, or if you're rejecting it because it just isn't, your mind isn't capable of understanding something. Yeah. And that's kind of how I was before. I would just reject anything that I didn't have, and I still kind of do. I reject it if I don't have a personal experience with it. Like Bigfoot, I totally believe that these people who have seen it and experienced it are completely, fully aware of what they have witnessed. Oh, yeah. And I believe that it's real, and I believe that it's out there, and they're having these experiences. But until I personally have an experience with Bigfoot, I can't verify that it's real. So what the experience that I was going to tell you about is the first time and the only time that I needed to realize that there's something much bigger and more powerful out there in this world. I don't know where it comes from.
Turned you from a skeptic into a knower.
A knower. Exactly. Not just a believer, a knower. And
once you've seen something, it's not a matter of belief anymore.
No, but it almost leaves you with more questions.
Oh, it always does.
Than anything. But I've stopped questioning. I've stopped wondering what it is. I think I know what it is. I don't know specifically what it is, where it came from, where it went. I don't have any need for government to disclose anything to me. I don't need them to tell me that there's some much more intelligent, powerful force in existence out there, because I'm sure that I actually think that people like you and me and many others have had a lot more close encounters than the military or the government ever has or ever will have.
Well, I think there are definitely more sightings coming out of the general populace just because of how much more civilians there are than military or otherwise government. And even though the government has recently come out and given us plenty of disclosure, it's still not the talk of the town, you know? No one walking around on the street is going to know about the recent Pentagon disclosures via Freedom of Information Act. It's not going to make much difference.
No, it won't. I mean, it's because nobody believes anything that they're telling us anyway, either way. Where they tell us it's real, they tell us it's not real. It's like nobody's going to believe them in either direction. You have to have that own personal proof. And that is why I think everybody should take as much time as they can to just go out. You don't have to go out to where you can see all the stars in the sky. You just have to be present for the experience and be open to sitting and looking up. I mean, if you spend an hour and a half just staring up at the sky, when you know that it's the right time to do it and you feel it, like you see satellites going across the sky, you see all kinds of amazing things. I just think that people are so focused in on their phones. It makes you phone blind, the bright lights in your eyes. It takes you hours to adjust back to the point where you can see things in the night sky without that reflection in your eyes.
Hey guys, Alex here. And I'm sorry to tell you, but I am definitely addicted to coffee. I need coffee. And unfortunately, it takes coffee to make this show work. I stay up late at night doing these edits, and oh boy, did I have to do some edits on this one, as well as sound design, mixing, and mastering. And if you want to show any appreciation and contribute to my coffee fund, there is links to do so in the show notes of this episode, of every episode of the show. Scroll down and you will be able to find how you can provide coffee to Alex, who needs it desperately. So I thank you so much if you choose to do that, and God bless you for the caffeine, that dark ocean of Joe in my cup. I couldn't thank you enough. Now back to your regularly scheduled programming. All right. You said you had two big sightings of something. I'm not sure what yet. And then two small ones that are all sort of intertwined. So you can give this in chronological order if you want to, or in order of importance to you. However, it makes more sense.
I guess I'll do it in, they're one and the same. Chronological order and order of importance or significance is the same. Yeah.
That makes sense.
So I'll just start with the first one, and it's hard to know where to start because I spent a lot of my life not thinking that I would ever see anything other than stars and the moon and the clouds and the, occasional shooting star or something in the sky. And I didn't really think that there was anything else to see in the sky. I would look at it and wonder what space was. How far does it go? It has to exist within something. I mean, our brains just can't process that there's just like infinite nothingness or infinite anything. So that was always a question in my mind, was like, what is out there? Where does it start? Where does it end? What part of it are we in, and how big are we in the big scheme of things, or how important are we in the big scheme of things even? But this one night, I think it was Thanksgiving night. I can look it up and find out specifically because I ended up doing a search after I witnessed this. I ended up doing a search and seeing something else that was like posted on YouTube the same night, or the same day, of a UFO craft coming down out of the sky, and it like was over the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem.
Okay.
I think, am I saying that right? Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem. Is that where it is?
Yeah.
Okay. But I didn't watch UFO videos or even pay attention to anything extraterrestrial UFO related before. So this one night, I think it was Thanksgiving night or the night after Thanksgiving, I was just sitting out on my parents' front porch. This is in Virginia Beach. I was on the phone. It was, I want to say we were sitting there from about midnight. I was sitting on my front porch from about midnight until, I want to say this was like 2 a.m. I was just talking with my boyfriend on the phone. It was cold. It was a cold night. And I was sitting on brick steps. And at some point I told him that I didn't feel cold. That suddenly I just didn't feel cold anymore. That it just felt like everything was the same temperature as my body. And where I should have wanted to go inside and get warm, I was just still sitting out on these bricks, just outside. And he was like, well, I want to get off the phone. I'm kind of like tired of talking, because we were not talking about anything. And I was like, okay, but I don't want to get off the phone for some reason. Like, yeah, you're really boring to talk to too, but I just don't want to hang up yet. And he, appeased me and like obliged and was like, okay, well, I'll stay on the phone with you a little bit longer.
How long did that relationship last?
We were together for 6 years.
It's pretty good for two people who don't like to talk to each other.
Right. I mean, we did. We didn't like to talk on the phone. We were usually, but he, at this point when we were talking on the phone, he was only a quarter mile down the road from me. And he had just left. He had just left my presence, my house, and had gone back to his place. And so it was kind of ridiculous for us to be talking on the phone. But for some reason, I was just like, I don't know. I just needed you to be here tonight on the phone with me while I'm sitting out here staring at the sky. And he stayed on the phone with me reluctantly. And at some point, probably a few minutes later, I told him, I was like, he said, aren't you cold? Don't you want to go inside? And I said, no, I'm not even cold. My feet aren't cold. My butt's not cold. My body's not cold. It feels like a perfect temperature, like 72 degrees out here. And he was like, you're weird. And I sat there for a few minutes trying to think of something to talk to him about. And then all of a sudden, there's just this like star in the sky. I wasn't paying attention to the sky or anything. I was just, that's where my eyes were directed, was in front of me, and nothing was going on. It's 2:00 in the morning. So this star started to come closer and closer. But then at some point, as it got a lot closer, there's this, because it was a bright, solid light. And it was very bright in my eyes. I thought it was a helicopter that was coming down for a landing in the cul-de-sac in front of my parents' house. And I was like, oh, it's not a satellite or a shooting star or anything. It's just a helicopter coming in for a landing. Like, so matter of fact, like, it's just a helicopter. And as this thing got closer and closer, it's not making any sound at all. But it has what looks like a helicopter spotlight shining right in my eyes. But at the same time, it's not casting any light on the ground, which was super weird. So I kind of got up off the steps and started walking towards it like, what is this thing? And I told him that a helicopter was coming in for a landing. And he was like, you're insane. Like, why would a helicopter be coming in for a landing? And I was like, I don't know, but it is. It just, maybe it's looking for something. Maybe it's looking for somebody. But it didn't move. It wasn't a spotlight that's like shifting around and searching, which you see helicopters doing with their spotlights, looking for something on the ground. It just wasn't doing that. And as it got closer and closer, which seemed like it was about 50 feet above me, and then starts to move to the right, to my right, and then just turns, instead of this concentrated spotlight looking ball of light, it just turns into this blue haze, kind of like what your studio color looks like.
Sort of like a blue mist.
A blue mist. It didn't have any dimensions. It didn't have any surface, or it was just this blue mist.
And it was still glowing.
Still glowing.
Okay.
But it wasn't the bright, solid light anymore. It wasn't like a star that came down from the heavens anymore. It just kind of faded into this blue haze. It was almost kind of like a crescent moon shape, but still didn't have any defined edges. And it just kind of drifted off to the right, stayed about 50 feet above my head, drifted off to almost my neighbor's roof, and then turned back into a solid white spotlight looking light, almost like a ball of light, and then just shot away so fast that it just turned back into a star and then disappeared. So it looked like it traveled thousands of light years within about 30 seconds.
That is amazing. It sounds like it kind of cloaked itself as it approached you, and then once you saw that it could do that, it just skedaddled.
It was almost like at that first one, I started to think, what was that? Obviously, what was that? And where did it come from? Where did it go? It went directly north. Okay, so from where I was standing and the direction that it shot, the direction it came from, and then the direction that it left, it was north and also up into the sky. I kind of started to try and take account of my surroundings. And I realized that there was no sound, absolutely no sound. And I told my boyfriend on the phone this. I was like, hold up, this thing just turned into a blue haze and just shot away faster than it arrived, but so fast that it just couldn't be anything normal. And I was like, I want to see another one. I need to see another one. And I started walking around, and he was like, what are you doing? You should go inside. This is dangerous. What happened? And I was like, well, I need to see what this was. I want to see another one. I want to figure this out. And I told him I'd get off the phone with him. I was like, I'm done with our talk. Like, we're done. So I hung up the phone with him, and I'm looking around, and it's like there was a dome over me. All the stars seemed closer, which I hadn't noticed before. But after this, I started taking account of my surroundings, and it was like complete silence, almost like I was under a bubble. Mm-hmm. And all the stars were like stuck to this bubble. Instead of being, out in the sky, they were like stuck to the edge of this bubble that was maybe like 500 feet above me at the most, surrounding me completely all the way to the ground. And it was like I could hear my voice and my sounds echoing off of something, bouncing back, and nothing else was making a sound at all. So it was like, when you have really good headphones on and you can hear every little nuance in your voice or every little sound kind of feedback right into your ear, that's what it sounded like.
Oh, yeah. I experience that all the time.
Yeah, right now.
Yeah.
So apologies for that. My voice, I'm sure, is not soothing. But that's what it sounded like. And so I'm walking around, looking up at the sky, looking all around, going, where is Where did that come from? Where is it going? And then another one starts to just come just like the other one did. But the first one I didn't notice right away until it got much, much closer. But this star, I could see it because I was looking up from the same area where this one came from and where it went to. And another star just started coming down. It just started growing and growing and growing and getting bigger and closer and did the same exact thing. This time I was right under it. So instead of being 50 feet away and it was 50 feet above me, I was just right under it. And it was only probably 20 feet above me. And
oh my gosh.
Yeah. Did the same thing though, came all the way down, looked like, I mean, the best thing that I could relate to was a helicopter spotlight. And then but it was just a bright white, crystal white ball of light. And then it turned into that blue haze, moved off to the right. And I'd say about 100 feet, moved to the right, and then shot off again, right back like the last one, same place, north and up and north. And I was like, okay, like I'm not seeing things. That was twice. I was thinking I was lucky. I thought I was lucky to see two, and I was really blessed and whatever. And then another one came. So there were three in total. And the third one did the same exact thing and shot off. And I kind of somehow knew that it was over after that one. I watched for a little bit longer. Nothing happened. And it was like 3 is this number that's been haunting me for many years. So I kind of realized that it was done. So after that, and then no more came, I started looking around and I was kind of in shock, kind of panicked. Like, what did I just witness? What was that? And there has to be more. That's just too strange. Why did they come right here? So I started walking around. I walked to the backyard, and my parents' backyard is pretty heavily wooded. So is the surrounding, but there's this big marsh area in the backyard. So once you get past the trees to that like tree line, you can see for a really long way. And I got like halfway back in the backyard and I could see this bright, it looked like a fire in the sky, but it was just in a pine tree, kind of maybe 100 feet up and in front of me. And I matter-of-factly in my head said, oh, it's just a lantern in the tree. It looked like just a lantern hanging in the pine tree. 150-foot tall pine tree.
Wow. Yeah, of course it'll just be a lantern. Mm-hmm.
Logically, what it always is.
Especially after you just had 3 UFO sightings.
Right. But still, like, my head was not able to process that this is something that I couldn't, there was no prerequisite for it. There was nothing I had seen before in my life to compare it to. So anyway, I see this thing in the tree and it looks like a little fire in the tree. And I was like, all right, that makes total sense compared to what I just saw. But then I kind of got a better perspective on it. I went down to the end of the point and this thing wasn't in the tree. It was in the sky and it moved over, and I don't know if it moved or if I just moved my perspective, but it clearly wasn't that high up in the sky, because the amount that I had to move, which was maybe 25 feet to the right or 20 feet to the right, and then 50 feet forward to get this thing to come out right into the middle of this opening, basically a big field. That only happens if something's pretty close, right?
Yeah, to change your perspective and see it move to somewhere else, basically. Right.
Unless it moves, but I don't think it moved. So anyway, I'm looking at it, and this thing starts out, it was just like a little fire. It looked like a bright, bright star, but on fire. And then it started to kind of like grow and shrink, and then just started flashing colors, like perfect, beautiful blue, indigo, violet, yellow, orange, purple, like wow. Separately. It almost looked like it was spinning, and it had different lights shooting out, but it was also growing to the point where it was, if it was as high as I thought it was, maybe 200 feet in the sky, and about 100 feet away from me, then it would have had to, at its biggest, be about the size of, I'm trying to think, like the big beach ball, like as far as you can stretch your arms wide.
Like Miami Beach style beach ball.
Right. Big beach ball. And then it would shrink down to what looked like the size of a tennis ball. But when it was the size of the tennis ball, when it was really concentrated, tiny, it was still flashing these perfect colors, but it was almost even brighter.
Right. Like it all contracted into all the light that was spread out is now contracted into a smaller container.
Yeah. It was like more intense and more concentrated. I didn't want to take my eyes off of it, but I also was kind of freaked out that there was some kind of celestial event happening that was like a supernova happening or some kind of like planet was exploding. I didn't know.
Yeah, it sounds like this whole time you're really trying to keep yourself grounded and rationalize it, which says a lot about your character and, the actual weirdness of the event. Because some people might see something kind of like that and just be like automatically, oh, it's a UFO right then and there. And, are kind of more prone to perhaps psyching themselves out about something.
Yeah. I kind of wish I had. But yes, I tried very much. I wasn't even trying to stay grounded. It was all I could do was process it as something in reality as I knew it.
Something you're familiar with currently.
Yes, from all of my previous experiences in life. I watched it for as long as I could before I realized that I either have to go and find somebody else to verify this, or I have to, I knew I had to take my eyes off it for a second to go and wake somebody up to look at this. So I watched it for, I want to say like 15 minutes. And then I went inside to my parents' house and woke them up. And when I woke them up, it was 4:00 in the morning. So this didn't really become a realization until later that I had gotten off the phone with my boyfriend at 2:00 in the morning-ish, 2:30, when I saw that first thing and I hung up with him. And then I actually called him back when I was looking around for the second thing. And I asked him, because he was only a quarter mile away, I had asked him to go outside and look up in the sky and see if he saw it. And he was like, oh, I couldn't get out of bed. And I was like, just go look. And he was like, yeah, I see something. It looks like a bright star, but can I go inside now? And I was like, yeah, fine, bye. So that was like at 2:30, 2:45 in the morning. And then when I woke my parents up, which seemed like maybe 20 minutes later, it was 4:00 in the morning. And my mom said, it is 4:00 in the morning. Why are you still awake? And what could you possibly be waking us up for? And I was like, look, I just need you to, I'll just open your windows. I'll open your windows. It's right out there. I just need you to look at something and tell me what you think it is. And so I opened the windows and woke my parents up, and they like looked out the window and they both said, what is that? And I was like, I don't know. I want you to tell me what it is. My dad's a pilot. He's a commercial airline pilot. It's been flying.
He's a good guy to ask.
Right. So he didn't know. He got up, he went out on his balcony, he looked out at it. They got the binoculars, they're looking at it. He told me to call air traffic control. I think he actually called air traffic control. I Googled the number and called air traffic control at Norfolk Airport, and also the Navy air traffic control. Tried to call NASA, which was ridiculous because I don't know what NASA's phone number is, or if anybody even answers the phone. But the air traffic control tower said that they couldn't see it. The guys seemed almost upset that they couldn't see it. And we were so adamant that we were looking at this thing, but they couldn't see it on their radar. At the same time, it was kind of like, well, maybe they were just saying they couldn't see it on their radar, but there were no like jets or helicopters coming around to look for it. Called the police in the area to see if anybody else could see it. And they were saying no, that they haven't had any reports of it, but it could be a drone. And at that point I was like, what's a drone?
Yeah, it's pretty early for consumer drones.
Yeah. And they were like, well, we use drones, but we're not going to be flashing lights on them. And they explained to me what a drone was. It was just like this little like remote controlled aircraft that they used to spy on people. And I was like, what? Like drones? This is bad. But they were very adamant that they would not advertise their drones if they were using them. So that kind of ended. And we watched this thing until sunrise. And it just, same as the other ones, just kind of stopped. It grew and it flashed all these beautiful colors for a couple hours. And then it just kind of got smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And the colors stopped flashing and it turned into like the North Star. As the sun came up, you could still, it was just a star. And at the time, I didn't have Google Earth or Google Sky installed on my phone. I never really knew that I needed it. After that, I installed it so that I could like point my phone at things to see if it was a star or a galaxy or a satellite or whatever. I called MUFON afterwards. Well, the next day, I kind of went to sleep and got up the next day and was like, I need to figure this out. I thought maybe somebody had a video of it. I wasn't the only one that saw it. So I went on YouTube and the internet and just typed in like UFO. The only thing that came up that was posted that day was the Dome of the Rock UFO. And it did look very similar.
Oh, so that's how you found out about that video?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I otherwise had not ever seen a UFO video before.
And that's interesting because that was, that's a place of great, great religious significance.
Right. It was pretty impressive to see this video of the thing that looked pretty similar, different. It had a different trajectory and everything. I mean, this one looked like just the same kind of star that came down and it kind of hovered over the Dome of the Rock, if I remember right. And then it just shot back up, but it was very similar. And I was like, whoa, so something happened in other places in the world tonight at the same time. I was just assuming that it was real. And after that, they've said that that was just a fake video or something.
That's what they say about all of them.
Right. Of course they would. But that's the only way I know that that was the same date. Because it was that appeared on the internet at the same time as the thing I saw. Because I saw that it was uploaded the next day, or like the same basic time frame as when I had seen what I saw. And thinking on it later, talking to MUFON was annoying. They wanted to question my dad and my mom, and they were asking a whole bunch of stupid questions that were
they'll
like,
definitely look corroborative witnesses in any investigation they do.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just kind of standard field research practice.
Maybe it was the guy that we got. Maybe he was our regional guy, our representative from MUFON, but he was annoying. I ended up like getting off the phone with him, just like, I don't remember. He wanted something like exact coordinates, our first and last names. My dad's still a pilot at this time. So it was like our privacy felt breached, and none of us wanted to be looked at as some kind of weirdos or crazies. And
as far as I know, they don't actually post any of that information on their website. They just want to have that information for their own files. Right.
Well, I didn't know who MUFON was or what their situation was at the time. So it's
understandable not to want to give out all that sort of information.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I didn't know who MUFON was until after I started Googling, like, what the hell did I see in the sky and what do I do about it? Because I had lots of questions. I wanted answers.
Mm-hmm.
As I thought about it later, and this might have been after another experience that I had, but it almost seemed like there was some kind of dome over where I was.
And I wanted to talk to you about some of these anomalous sort of things that came with the lights, because the dome thing you're talking about, I've never heard of anybody witnessing something that looked like a dome over them, but a lot of people have said there was this sort of dome of silence whenever they've had an experience like this.
It was like a bubble, like a literal bubble.
Mm-hmm.
Almost like a projection dome. I feel like a dome of silence would not be enough to explain it. A dome of like matter wouldn't be enough because it clearly wasn't just that. I started to question whether my reality that I become accustomed to was even a realistic perspective. Like maybe I'm always under a dome.
Yeah, that whole experience is a very mind-bending thing.
Yeah.
And I can remember one time being up on a mountain laying under the stars and just looking at, I guess what was where the atmosphere, I could somehow perceive where the atmosphere ends and space begins. And it felt like I was also under a dome. And it was just very strange thing to perceive because whenever I look at the sky, I don't normally see it like that.
Yeah. Well, maybe you were also kind of in the midst of a similar experience because I think now.
Well, here's the funny thing is other people did see a UFO that night in the same place. It was a big gathering.
Yep.
And there were people the next day talking about, hey, did you see the UFOs last night? And I was like, nah, I was looking at the stars. I didn't see it.
Yeah. I looking back on it, and it took me years to kind of really put it all together to where I could give myself some relief that I didn't have to seek answers from somebody else. I just kept revisiting it and putting it together and putting it back into perspective and my experience that night. And it was like the dome that you usually witness, which is like, if we live on a globe and our sky is round and yes, we're like under a dome kind of, but it's like it shrunk down to a very small dome, like Epcot Center.
Okay.
You know, Disney World, that almost like that size, maybe like a 3-block radius.
Yeah, that's absolutely tiny.
It was very tiny. It felt tiny. It felt like I was under a tent, in a tent.
It's like you're in a human-sized fishbowl. Right.
Yeah. Few humans, but fishbowl, pretty much. And I thought, okay, so the first 3 things that I saw, maybe it wasn't 3 separate things. Because there's be no way. Why would 3 different things come down to that place? There's nobody else awake, nobody else around, nobody else. It's this cul-de-sac at the end of a really quiet street in a quiet neighborhood with a bunch of idiots and yuppies and nobody. So clearly came down to me. If it was 3 things, all 3 things came down to me. But I thought, okay, maybe there was some kind of like clear reflective dome. And this was a triangle craft. And it was just each corner of the triangle that was rotating outside of the dome. And it just kind of the way the dome made it look was like reflecting in a way that made it seem like it came right down in front of me. But really it was like almost like masking it. And it was somewhere else above, but it magnified it to where each little corner of this triangle craft if it was giant, who knows how big, but a clear dome would really magnify the size of this thing. So maybe it was just a triangle and it was rotating, and each little corner of this triangle, the closer, when it became close to the dome, it made it kind of the colors break up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some sort of refraction.
Right. To where it looked like a blue haze, and then it rotated and then looked like it shot away into the sky, but it was really just rotating, and kind of the dome made it look like it shot away.
That's a crazy thought. I was kind of thinking along a different line because after you saw it the first time, you said that you wanted to see it again. And
I did.
It brings me to think of Dr. Stephen Greer's CE5 protocols, which, funny enough, he lived in Alexandria. I believe he now resides in Charlottesville. And he's come up with a series of practices and protocols through meditation in which people are able to ask for these things to show themselves. And oftentimes they do. And it makes me think that maybe you just got it your first time.
Well, I think that was my first experience with it. And then after that, yes, I was like, this sounds insane, but it was almost like I was gifted after that night. I was gifted with this weird language that I still can hear and speak in my head. I don't know what it is. It sounds like some kind of ancient language. And I used to go outside and I could ask for these things to just appear. And they would usually just be like look like a shooting star or like a little moving star, and they've just in the sky. But I'd sit there and I'd say these words, which I'm kind of tempted to tell you what it sounds like, but I sound like a weirdo saying them out loud because all I have to do is recite it in my head, and it's almost like I'm communicating with something, which I haven't done for a while.
Well, if you'd want me to, I can cut it out.
Okay. Let me psych myself up to it for a second. It's the same phrase, kind of repeating. So it's Nahalu Alem, Nahualeo Alem.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds weird.
I hear people talk like that in church all the time.
It's like talking in tongues, right?
Yeah, it's like speaking in tongues.
Yeah. I've heard people talk in tongues before, and sometimes I'm like, hey, I know that phrase, but a lot of times it just sounds like gibberish, but it's the same phrase. And in a way, I think it's like Elohim, Nahualeo Elohim,
Yeah.
which I've heard is like an ancient word for God.
God or gods. It could be used in the plural tense as well.
Yeah, I don't know the origins of it, but that was just like, it was almost like whatever it was said, hey, if you want us to come back, just say our name, like our call sign or something. But that aside, I mean, I did that for a long time, and it was always almost like a joke that I could go outside and I could just look up at the sky and think or say these words, and then something would show itself. But it was never anything significant. But I did have almost like, it was like I could call them into existence after that, but never that close.
More just glimpses.
Yeah, it was just like a wave almost, like from up in the sky. It would just be like, hey, like a little wink at you, like, hey, yeah, we heard you, we're here.
Nice.
And so that made me realize that these things are probably everywhere all the time. And it just is maybe a glitch in the matrix that they become they appear to us, or when they want to, or whatever, for whatever reason. But it was a few years before I saw anything else to that magnitude. And the next time I was driving, I'd moved to Richmond. I'd moved from Virginia Beach to Richmond, and I had to come back to Virginia Beach for a lawsuit that I was in. And I was returning back to Richmond in the evening after I had done my deposition. And it was in the evening. I think I left around 8 or 9 to go from Virginia Beach back to Richmond. And when I got to, I want to say on the other side of the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel, so it would have been like Newport News, Hampton area. I'm on the interstate, and this is before all the construction that made the roads wider and more lights and everything. This was like right before you hit Williamsburg. The road narrowed down to 2 lanes. And either side of the lanes is just trees, tall trees on both sides. So I'm driving, and I like to go. At this time, I had an 88 Dodge Aries K car.
I had a 85 Dodge Aries.
What?
My first car, yeah.
No way.
Yeah, dude.
What
no
color
AC, though.
was it?
It was white.
Mine was blue. Do you have the bench seat in the front?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the map light? That cool map light on the passenger side? Anyway.
I believe so. It's been a while since I've had that car.
Of course.
But I remember many sweaty butts on those leather seats.
Oh, you had leather. Oh, jeez. Yours was fancy.
Oh, man, it was so hot in there.
That was a good car.
Yeah,
it was a little car, but man, that thing had Lee Iacocca saved the Dodge Motor Company with that, I think. So I'm driving this car, but even in this car, it didn't love to go 80.
No.
But I would try to drive at about 80, 75 if I could. And I'm on the interstate. It's late. There are not a lot of cars on the interstate. And I see this like red blinking light in front of me right over the lanes that I'm in on the interstate. And I didn't really pay too much attention to it at first, but it was hovering over the road. After like 10 minutes, it's still there. I'm getting closer to it. It's getting closer to me, whatever. And I was kind of getting annoyed because I was like, oh, this is one of those like airplanes that check your speed or whatever on the interstate. And I was like, I just don't want to deal with it. So I kept driving. I like slowed down. I'm watching this thing. And then it went from one red blinking light to a red solid light and started obviously getting closer. Like it was stuck in one place or approaching me kind of right in my direction. And I was like, all right. Just kept an eye on it, kept driving. And then it just kind of split into two lights. Stayed close together, but obviously too far apart to be one craft at the distance this thing is or seems to be. And then the two lights are like solid, and then they're each blinking, and then they seem to split and to make it look like they're two airplanes or two blinking lights on each of those little lights. And then they totally disappear, and then they merge back together again into a red blinking light, and then they turn white and stays solid it stays solid for a little bit, and then it turns green for a little while. And I was just like,
whoa,
whatever this thing is I'm annoyed by it at this point because I'm not looking at the road. There could be deer, there could be anything. And I'm sitting here watching this speed radar aircraft, and I'm watching my speed, and I want to go fast. So anyway, this thing had been getting so close that it was almost above my head. Looked like it was about a mile away. So I pulled off the interstate on an exit and stopped at a gas station, kind of near a gas station, to kind of observe this thing in the sky until it went enough behind me to where I didn't have to worry about it anymore, kind of thinking, because it had been moving the whole time.
So you guys were kind of coming at in opposite directions, crossing each other, sort of?
Right. That's what it was coming to. I'm on the road going north, and this thing was kind of on the same road, but up in the sky traveling south. So eventually, I mean, it was still in front of me, but I don't know. I just was like so annoyed with it because I thought it was a police craft that was just checking speed.
Whenever I see those signs, speed limit enforced by aircraft, I'm always looking up like, okay, where are they?
Exactly. And I thought finally I'd spotted one. So I got off. I sat there for a while. I drove down the road. I should have been able to see it from my vantage point off the road, off the interstate, but I couldn't see it. So I just got back on the road. And as I got back on the road, it was gone. It was nowhere to be seen. I drove for maybe 10 more minutes. And then all of a sudden, it's boom, just shows up right in front of me again. Just a red flashing light, but it was a really slow flash. It was like red and then off for a second and then just red solid light. And I was like, oh, this is annoying. And then it just drifted off over where the median would have been between 64 north and south, east and west, 64.
Yeah, it's east to west.
East to west. Okay. So I was going west. So it kind of like drifted over the trees to the other side. And I was like, great. If I can't see it, it can't see me. And I proceeded to like go up to 80. And then all of a sudden, this, I don't know what it was. It was like, I could see the lights, but they were really close, right above the tree line and right in front of me. And I was like, oh, this thing's coming in for a landing. And I'm looking at it, and I see it come over the treetops in the median of the two sides of the interstate. Mm-hmm. And it was a giant, it looked like a giant airplane, like a giant aircraft. I could see the metal on the bottom. I could see the rivets of the like metal where it was joined together. No landing gear, but I mean, it looked like just the bottom of a big airplane, like a commercial airplane. And I was like, okay, so this thing is going to just go over the interstate and go land somewhere at an airport over here. But there wasn't any airport nearby. I was in the middle of nowhere. And as I'm going under it, I have all my windows down, no sound. You would think you would hear a big jet noise. I thought
that close,
it would be cool to hear this giant plane that close right above me. It was like 50 feet above the tree line.
Yeah, Wayne and Garth seem to love it.
Right? And I'm passing under it. It should be going shh as I'm going shh, going 75 miles on the interstate this way, and it's crossing perpendicular to me, over me. It didn't go anywhere. It's just hovering there.
Oh.
I passed under it, and I'm putting my head out of my driver's side window looking up at this thing, and it just stays there. It should have been gone. It should have been over me and gone over the other side of the tree line already. But I passed under this thing, and I could see the whole bottom of it, I didn't see wings, but the whole undercarriage of this craft, whatever it was.
Could be the classic cigar-shaped UFO. If it just looked like the main body part, just a kind of a cylindrical thing.
I assumed it was an airplane, still trying to be logical. I called my dad and was like, Dad, what kind of airplane, like big commercial size airplane, can hover in the air? And he was like, none of them. Like, they don't hover. You know that. Are you stupid? And I'm trying to explain to him, well, but this one did. It just did. It was just hovering in the air right above me. I could look at it as I'm passing under it. If that thing has to be going, how fast do aircraft have to go, Dad, to be able to be that close to the ground? You know, they have to be going at least 100 miles per hour or something. They're coming in for a landing or taking off. They're going 70 at least. Well, that thing should have been gone. It shouldn't have allowed me to pass under it as I'm observing the entire undercarriage of this thing that's like 30 feet wide.
Yeah, that should have happened in just a few seconds.
Right. A split second, really. And it didn't. So that was the other one. And then it was gone, and then I never saw anything about it again. I mean, I kept on going to Richmond and never saw it. But it was something. That one is a solid craft. That one was metal. That one was something made by man. It was so clunky and ridiculous but when I saw it ahead of me and up in the sky, it was like, it was weird. It looked like drones or something kind of converging, and helicopters or something. But then passing under it, it was obviously a metal craft.
Yeah, and for all that I hear of UFO reports or sightings, personal experiences, usually it's just a light in the sky. Very rarely. Even if it's seen pretty close, like in your first encounter you mentioned, it's just a light, not something that you could throw a rock at and hear a ding, So that's incredible to me.
Yeah, it's almost more incredible than the first one because it was a solid object. But at the same time, it seems so put together by humans because I could see like welds and rivets and stuff in it that it was almost believable. But at the same time, what it was doing with the physics of what I know is gravity, and it didn't work out.
Yeah, things like that really make you wonder, because when you see lights in the sky or kind of metallic shaped craft or metallically made craft that don't seem to have that welding or rivets, as if they were just kind of 3D printed pieces of metal, then you think, okay, definitely something off-world or extra-dimensional or just totally paranormal, otherworldly. But seeing the rivets and stuff, it's like, oh, that seems way more primitive than everything else we hear about.
Yeah, it was super primitive in terms of, well, I mean, still advanced, I guess, but it looked like it was made by humans, but it didn't fly like anything human.
Yeah, it makes you wonder.
Yeah.
How much is the military working with, really?
Yeah.
And we still don't know for sure, but we know that they've denied at least that much. They've given us some other stuff as far as the possibility of extraterrestrial or other dimensional craft coming into our airspace. Certainly, we've had plenty of that.
Yeah.
Coming out of the Department of Defense, but nothing saying that, oh yeah, we have that stuff too, or we're working on something similar.
Yeah, I wonder about that too, because sometimes I do think that they've probably had crafts that they've either landed to interrogate the military to find out what their intentions are for humanity, to make sure they're like doing good things, military, government, of all the world to try and make sure that they're doing. I mean, if there were extraterrestrial creatures or even terrestrial creatures that we weren't in conversation with currently, then of course they'd want to know, like, what are you up to? And I would think that at some point they would share some of their technology advances, but not in a way that could allow our side to understand completely how they got there or how it works. It wouldn't, it would be like, yeah, okay, nice jets, nice airplanes, cool helicopters, like, look at our stuff. And they'd be like, whoa, how does this work? And they'd be like, yeah, okay, just take a look around, see what you think. And then be like, okay, bye. Like, go and figure it out if you can, but you're not going to. But I don't know.
Yeah, well, thinking about it in actually a totally different way, our current military technology is very, very destructive and toxic to the environment. Mm-hmm. So perhaps they would want us to have some sort of cleaner weaponry and technology that wouldn't be so damaging, could be more, laser focused, precise, very concentrated area of radiation, that sort of thing, rather than these megaton bombs, right?
Yeah, totally.
And chemical warfare and biological warfare and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's the impression I got. It wasn't like there weren't words or anything shared. But after that first experience, it was almost like an overwhelming sense that there was some other life force that wanted to infuse me with progressive understanding of something, our existence or our future or our past. And
yeah,
I would assume that the military would try and weaponize it, of course. But
of course, that's their job.
Right.
Basically. But it's funny to me whenever you hear of these craft actually landing and, pilots revealing themselves to other people who are observing. Oftentimes you'll hear that they have received messages of beware of your technology and what it's going to do to the environment, what it's going to do to the planet. These people seem, these star people, if you want to call them that, seem very environmentalistic. It's funny.
Yeah. I after that first experience that I told you about, I had... It was like seek knowledge. It was seek understanding of this, like seek understanding of everything. Like change your mind to understand it, the truth, instead of whatever you've been told. And so I did do it, like start deep diving into like where, why. And I also had this like really weird compulsion to go to Antarctica. And I started researching Antarctica and was like, why Antarctica? Like, I've never thought about that place before in my life, but now I have to go there. Why? And started kind of getting into the Hollow Earth theory and Admiral Byrd and
Project High Jump.
Yeah. I mean, that all kind of ties back into that same philosophy that you're saying, that there's this push by some other force that isn't earthly or isn't human to check yourself, check your ways, check your progress, check your potential, and make sure that it's not going in the wrong direction.
There seem to be a lot of arrows pointing in that direction. And honestly, I think that's a really good message for us to land on for the end of the episode. Anything else you'd like to say before we take it off air?
No, there were just two other minor little sightings I had, and they were both in daylight.
Oh yeah, I'd like to hear them.
One of them, I was in Henrico, Virginia, and I was sitting at a little outdoor restaurant area, and I was on the phone with somebody. I can't think it was my dad, and I got off the phone with him because I was like, I'm hold on, I see something in the sky. Let me call you right back. And it was just it was just a silver ball. I mean, looked like a ball bearing or a BB, but I would say at the distance there were like these beautiful puffy white clouds in the sky. Almost like, I mean, they were just perfect little puffy white clouds scattered all over the sky. And this little ball, silver ball, was kind of like darting around the clouds. And it looked like it was about the size of like a car, but round. And I was like watching it, kind of like, is this like some kind of floater in my eye? And like kept rubbing my eyes and like looking at this thing. And it was just this little happy little ball floating around, flying around the sky. And all of a sudden, I mean, it was just kind of like flying like a little happy ball. And then it started to kind of look nervous. And then it went around the back of a cloud, but I could still see it. Even though it was like going around the corner of the cloud, I could still see it. And it was back behind this cloud, and then it came back out. It's a ball, but it looked around the corner. If you can imagine that, it had definite like an energy of emotions or something. It looked around the corner of the cloud and then darted back around the corner.
That's so funny.
And then it came back out and looked around the corner of the cloud again, and then hid again, and then went kind of behind the next cloud that was, next to it. And then all of a sudden this helicopter comes flying in from the same direction where it looked around the cloud and then hid behind it. This helicopter starts flying in. And then this thing goes around to the front of this other cloud and then goes into what looks like an actual cave inside the cloud. It just goes into this little hole inside the cloud and kind of hides in there. And I can still see it. And this helicopter kind of comes by and does a turn around the cloud that it's in, and then goes back to the same path that it was traveling and just goes on. And then this thing comes out of the little hole and it just flies away really fast in a different direction.
It's like a game of aerial hide and seek.
It was. It did. It looked exactly like that. It was very animated. The thing had a big personality. It had a whole lot of energy of personality coming out of it. And it was like ha 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 kind of personality. That was the end of that one. And then last summer, I was at our community pool and I was just laying on a lounge chair. My kid was swimming in the pool. I was talking to another parent with her kids swimming in the pool. And I was looking up at the clouds. There were little puffy clouds again. And there were 4 or 5 of these little balls. They were much higher this time. But they were just playing tag. They were just playing tag in the clouds. They were just running. It was like one of them would go one way and run away, and then the other ones would follow it, and then another one would like come closer, and then they would run away the other way. And they were just playing tag in the clouds. They were just these little bright silver balls playing tag in the clouds. And I said to my people that were around me, I said, hey, I don't know if any of you care to look, but there are several UFOs playing tag in the clouds above us. And 3 or 4 people actually tried to look, and 2 of the 3 or 4 people saw it. And they were so excited. And all of them were like, that was not anything like I've ever seen before. That was something completely different. What was that? I was like, I don't know. I was like, I don't know. I don't know what they are. Like, your guess is as good as mine. I'm just glad we all saw it. And they were just very appreciative that I pointed it out and asked me how I noticed it. And I was just like, I don't know. Something said to look up, and I did. And that's kind of how it is. And I'm just always kind of sad when I forget to look up in the sky. And I'm always really happy when I do, especially when I see something that I feel like is just there for me, maybe to see. Yeah. And I hope the same for everybody.
I do too, honestly. I hope everyone can look up at the clouds and seeing these happy little intelligent Christmas ornaments dancing around above them.
Yeah. And it's so important because they are such simple things. It's almost so simple and basic that we have to bring some higher meaning into it. Mm-hmm. Which makes me think that it's something that's been around so much longer than us. I mean, obviously has, because their technology, whatever it is so much higher than anything we can even conceive. But
if it is technology even at all.
Right. It might just be like spirit, craft. I mean, we say craft, we say flying object, but it's like what I saw the first time wasn't an object at all. There was no object about it. It wasn't a solid thing. It was light. It was energy. Even the little balls, they were the same way. It was just like something was just pure energy about them.
This is why we've stopped using the terminology of UFO so much, and it's kind of more shifted to UAP, because obviously there's some things that can't necessarily be described as objects. But aerial phenomenon seems to be more encompassing and work better with a lot of these things that we see. And like you said, you saw the silver balls, which a lot of people do describe as having some sort of intelligence behind them. And also with the spook lights that a lot of people see flying around in the forest or up in the mountains also seem to have that same sort of playful attitude oftentimes, where they're just sort of dancing around and interacting with one another.
Yeah. I hope that we, as just civilians, if you want to call us that, could be the ambassadors for these entities, whatever they are, so that whatever they are don't get caught up in the wrong crowd in a way.
Well, taking it back to Stephen Greer, that's exactly his reason for doing the things that he does, because he doesn't want the people who are, as you might say, in control and looking for more and more power to be the ones who are the primary foot forward for humanity to other types of intelligences.
Yeah. We don't want to get them intercepted by the wrong vibe.
Mm-hmm.
They seem, to me at least, to be very humble, if that's the right word. But yeah, there are a lot of things going on on our planet that are less than humble and pretty aggressive and with not very good intentions. So I feel like the more energy we as humans direct up to the things that matter, like some people call it God or Jesus, or it's just like, just get your eyes off your phone, look up at the sky, take some time to take in the clouds, take in the universe, and just be appreciative of how far we can see and how many things that we can observe. And I think that's when like the truth comes to you, maybe, is when you're least expecting it and when you're just giving yourself to be open to all the possibilities in the world.
Absolutely, Aaron. I think you have a really, really positive and beautiful outlook on these things. And I want to thank you so much for coming back, coming onto the show for the first time and sharing that with our audience and, spreading the love and understanding.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to it for a long time.
I really want to thank Erin for taking the time to come out and share her stories on this show to make it possible. I had scheduling conflicts with her and many other people who I'd intended on interviewing for the show, and good things are coming down the pipe just as long as I can get together with everybody at a mutually agreed upon time to record these interviews, which is a lot harder than I would have thought. I've had this email address for a very long time now, and I thought I was never going to get any emails. Well, they're starting to pour in now, quite a bit, and I just want to thank everybody who's reached out and sent me emails with feedback on the show or in order to set up an interview to appear on the show yourself. It really means a lot to me, so thank you everybody for listening to our 20th episode. Hope you all have a wonderful night and a great rest of your week. Bye.
Thank you.